Hi guys, and welcome to the Stephen King Sematary Club. Hi guys, today is part 2 of The Shining. So part 2 is called Closing Day, and it starts with chapter 8, which is A View of the Overlook. So the Torrance family is driving up the mountain to the Overlook Hotel in their VW Bug, which is on its last legs. So as they're heading up, there are some kind of glitches going on with the car that makes Jack want to give it a break. So they pull over to a scenic overlook and take a moment to just look at the Overlook Hotel. So they are looking at the hotel, and Danny just turns gray and looks faint and kind of scared. And it's because, quote, "It was the place he had seen in the midst of the blizzard, the dark and booming place where some hideously familiar figure sought him down long corridors carpeted with jungle. The place Tony had warned him against. It was here. It was here. Whatever Red Room was, it was here." That's on page 76. Chapter 9 is Checking It Out. So the Torrance family arrives a little bit earlier than expected because they had been anticipating the car needing to go slow or having some sort of a fit, and they arrived when there's still a lot of activity at the hotel. So tons of people are checking out. Jack and Wendy are kind of giddy and happy, and Wendy is thinking about how she's reminded of her honeymoon, and this could be a real happy time for their family, and they will have kind of a new beginning. So Danny is worried about this place because he's seen it in his vision that Tony showed him, and he doesn't want to ruin the happiness that his parents are showing. They are happy with each other, they're happy with him, and he takes it upon himself to not want to ruin that. So he's bottling everything up inside of him. Chapter 10 is Hallorann, and this is when we are introduced to one of my favorite characters. So Wendy is given a tour of the kitchen, which it sounds amazing to me. It has a cold pantry, a walk-in freezer, vegetable bins, 2 fridges, 3 stoves, tons and tons of food. They mentioned that there are 50 loaves of bread, and that just seems crazy to me because I definitely would never go through 50 loaves of bread between the 2 people that live in this house over the winter. But anyway, so Hallorann calls Danny Doc, which is his nickname, but no one has called Danny that since they've been in the kitchen. And then Hallorann asks, quote, "Sure you don't want to go to Florida, Doc?" on page 86. And his lips don't move, but Danny can hear him. So we know that something is up between the 2 of them. And Hallorann also tricks Danny into answering him. He says, quote, "What's my name now? I guess it just slipped my mind," on page 87. And Danny answers immediately, without thought, "Mr. Hallorann, Dick to your friends." So Jack and Wendy kind of look at each other like, did he tell us his first name? Which he didn't, because the chapter starts with just his last name, Hallorann, and does not mention his first name until that part. So chapter 11 is The Shining, and it is one of my absolute favorite chapters. So Hallorann asks Danny to help him carry his luggage out to his car. He is going to Florida, where he works at a restaurant in the off-season, and then he works at the Overlook the rest of the year. So Hallorann is driving a Plymouth Fury, which he has rented because his real car is in Florida, but I think that's funny because Christine is a Plymouth Fury. So that's another one of those little synchronicities in the Stephen King universe. So the 2 of them are sitting in the car together, and Hallorann says, quote, You shine on, boy, harder than anyone I ever met in my life. And I'm 60 years old this January. That's on page 92. And then Hallorann goes on to explain that he and his grandmother both had this ability to converse without opening their mouths. So he and his grandma would sit around at a table and talk to each other just using their minds. I can't help but feel that, for Dick, that must have been really nice to have someone to share that experience with. But with Danny, he's all alone, he's isolated. Even if he tells people, it's kind of weird, and he has to deal with all of this stuff by himself, and he's only 5, and that would be so difficult. While they're sitting there discussing The Shining, as Hallorann calls it, he asks Danny to send him a thought using his mind and use all of his force and just, see what happens. So Danny thinks, "Hi, Dick," and he sends that out, and at the very last minute, he kind of pulls back because he's worried about hurting Dick, I guess. And it hits, like the force of it hits Dick Hallorann, just makes him fly back in his seat and kind of knocks him back, and he needs to actually recover from this. And then Danny admits that he even backed off a little bit. So they have this real important heart-to-heart, and Danny says that, he can see his parents' thoughts. He doesn't like to because it would be kind of like spying on them. It's wrong, and he doesn't like to do that, but we know that he can do it. He just, tries to afford them privacy. And he says that he can also feel their feelings, but that can't be helped. That's just like he's around and that comes off and he absorbs it. So Hallorann tells him that whenever he has a vision, while Danny kind of goes into a trance and sees Tony, Hallorann smells oranges, and that's how he knows something is going to happen. And he said that one time his brother was in a train crash and died, and he knew that it happened. Right when it happened, he had a vision of it after he smelled oranges, and he was overseas, and he got confirmation that it did happen. And then he's telling Danny that also there are times when things don't happen. There was one time he was convinced that his plane was going to crash, and so he changed his flight to a different flight, and nothing happened with the original plane. It was fine. Hallorann also mentions that he's seen things at the Overlook. He's met some people there who kind of have a little bit of a shine and have seen some things. A maid was fired over something that she claims that she saw in room 217. And Dick says, quote, "That was in room 217, and I want you to promise me you won't go in there, Danny, not all winter." That's on page 99. Dick goes on to reassure Danny that things shouldn't really be able to hurt you. Quote, "People who shine can sometimes see things that are gonna happen, and I think sometimes they can see things that did happen, but they're just like pictures in a book." And that's on page 100. So basically, it's scary, but it shouldn't be able to hurt you. You should be able to kind of turn your back on it, close your eyes, something, and break that image, and then once you look again, it's gone. And then Hallorann says, quote, "If there is trouble, you give a call, a big loud holler like the one you gave a few minutes ago. I might hear you even way down in Florida, and if I do, I'll come on the run." That's on page 101. And I think that's so cute. I love their little, it's not even father-son, it's more like grandfather-son relationship. And Dick really cares for him, and like I've said before, I just love Danny. I love the character of Danny, and Dick is probably my second favorite character, so seeing the two of them together and knowing that they like each other, and I don't know, I really enjoy that. Danny runs back into the hotel, and Hallorann is watching him, and it says, quote, "But what if he was wrong? He had known that this was his last season at the Overlook ever since he had seen that thing in the bathtub of room 217. It had been worse than any picture in any book, and from here, the boy running to his mother looked so small." That's on page 101. So we know that room 217 has something horrible in it, and it scared Dick so much that he is not coming back to the Overlook. He is done. And poor Danny is going to be basically alone in this hotel with this thing because his parents can't see it, but he can. Chapter 12 is the grand tour. So Ullman is finished with his chores or his tasks, his managerial tasks, and everyone else has left. So he is going to take the Torrances around the hotel. He takes them up to the 3rd floor and shows them the presidential suite. And Danny sees blood and bits of brain on the wallpaper. He looks away and it's gone, but later when he looks again, it reappears. So he is upset, obviously, and he, again, is thinking about how his parents are having a nice time. His parents are happy. He doesn't want to cause any problems. He doesn't want his dad to not have this job. So poor Danny is taking all of this onto himself, and he's not saying anything because, he wants his family to be happy. So Ullman shows them their own quarters, which are much smaller and cozier and very nice. Chapter 13 is the front porch, and Mr. Ullman leaves. The Torrances are now all alone, and as he's ready to go, Ullman says, quote, "Take good care of it for me, Mr. Torrance." And Jack answers, quote, "I think it will be here when you get back next spring." And that's on page 112. So, foreshadowing. Now the Torrances are all alone. They are isolated. They really, once Ullman drives away, they really feel it. They really understand that there's no one there, and they can still get to town. They can still get to Sidewinder. It's not like they're snowed in yet, but that's on its way. So that is the end of part 2. We will start part 3 next week. Have a spooky day.